You're a cheater. And you were meant to pay for it.
The wrench slipped from my hands when I heard my daughter's voice through the bathroom door, drunk and shaking. I know it's sick, Mom, but that's what happened. I froze, crouched behind the half-torn shower wall where I'd been fixing the busted pipe for 3 hours. Water dripped onto my bare shoulders. My towel hung loose around my waist. Through the gap in the drywall, I could see shadows moving, 2 figures stumbling into the bathroom. Kara, honey, you need to calm down, Mira's voice slurred back. My wife sounded just as drunk as our 19-year-old daughter. Calm down? Kara's laugh turned into a sob. How am I supposed to calm down after what I saw? I pressed my eye closer to the crack in the wall. They were both swaying, Mira gripping the sink counter, Kara wiping tears with the back of her hand. The smell of cheap vodka filled the small space. Baby, sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Mistakes? Kara's voice shot up an octave. You call screwing my boyfriend a mistake? The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I must have heard wrong. Must have. Kara, please. I saw you, Mom. I saw you with Devin, in this house. In my bed. The wrench fell completely now, clanging against the exposed pipes. Both women went silent. Dad? Kara called softly. I scrambled to pull myself together, grabbing the wrench and pretending I'd just been working. Yeah, sweetie. Just fixing this pipe. Almost done. The bathroom door opened slightly. Kara's tear-streaked face appeared. Behind her, Mira's reflection in the mirror looked pale, guilty. Can you give us a minute? Kara whispered. I nodded, gathering my tools with shaking hands. As I squeezed past them in the doorway, I caught a glimpse of Mira's phone screen lighting up on the counter. A text notification. The contact photo made my blood freeze. It was Devin, my daughter's boyfriend of 8 months. The kid I'd taught to change oil last summer. The one who called me sir and brought Mira flowers on Mother's Day. The phone screen went dark before I could read the message. I stumbled to the hallway, my mind reeling. 22 years of marriage. 22 years of building this life, this family, this trust. The house I'd bought with my plumbing business money. The woman I'd worked 70-hour weeks to provide for. Behind the closed bathroom door, I heard muffled crying. Both voices now, mixing together in a symphony of guilt and shame. I sat on the edge of our bed, still in my towel, staring at the bathroom door. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The pipe could wait. Everything could wait. Because in that moment, I realized my life as I knew it was over. The question wasn't whether my wife had betrayed me. The question was what I was going to do about it. 3 a.m. Mira lay beside me, finally passed out after stumbling through what she called an explanation. She'd claimed Kara was confused, drunk, imagining things. Her words slurred together as she painted our daughter as an unstable girl, spreading lies. But liars always over-explain. I waited until her breathing deepened into the rhythm of deep sleep. Then I carefully reached across her to the nightstand where her phone sat charging. I knew her passcode, our anniversary date. She'd never changed it in 5 years. The screen lit up, 17 unread messages. Most were from her sister, her book club friends, work colleagues, normal stuff. But scrolling down, I found what I was looking for. Devin. Can't stop thinking about today. Devin. When can we meet again? Devin. Your husband working late tomorrow? The timestamps made my stomach turn. Some sent while I was in the shower. Others while I was at job sites, crawling under houses, fixing other people's problems while my own world rotted from the inside. I kept scrolling, going back weeks. The messages started innocent enough. Devin asking about Kara's surprise birthday party, coordinating dinner plans. But they shifted, became more intimate, more personal. Mira, you make me feel young again. Devin. Age is just a number, baby. Mira. Jake's at the Morrison job until 8. Come over. I screenshotted everything, sending copies to my own phone as quietly as possible. My hands were steady now. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something colder, something calculating. In her photo gallery, I found what nearly broke me. Pictures from last weekend when I'd been installing a new water heater across town. Mira at what looked like a party, dressed in clothes I'd never seen before, tight, expensive, clothes a 42-year-old mother shouldn't wear to wherever she'd been. And behind her in several shots, Devon's hands on her waist, his face close to her neck. One blurry video that I couldn't bring myself to play. I'd been married to this woman for over 2 decades. I'd held her hand through her father's funeral. Stayed up all night when Kara had pneumonia at age 6. Built her a goddamn garden shed with my own hands last spring, and she'd been screwing our daughter's boyfriend. I set the phone back exactly where I'd found it and lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling. My mind was already working, already planning. 22 years in the plumbing business teaches you patience. You learn to trace problems back to their source. You learn that quick fixes never hold. This problem needed a permanent solution. The bedroom door creaked. I closed my eyes, pretending to sleep as footsteps approached. "Dad?" Kara's voice, small and broken. "Are you awake?" I opened my eyes. She stood in the doorway in an oversized college sweatshirt, her face still puffy from crying. "Yeah, sweetheart. Can't sleep." She glanced at her mother's sleeping form, then whispered, "You saw the phone, didn't you?" I didn't answer immediately. But my silence was answer enough. Kara walked closer, perching on the edge of the bed. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way. How long have you known?" 2 months. I walked in on them once, but Mom convinced me I'd misunderstood what I saw. Said Devon was just helping her move furniture in my room. She laughed bitterly. I wanted to believe her. But tonight, at the party, Devon got drunk and started bragging to his friends about his older woman. The rage that shot through me was white hot. Not just at Mira, but at this punk kid who'd turned my daughter into a sufferer of his sick game. "I'm going to fix this," I told her quietly. She looked at me with eyes that suddenly seemed much older than 19. "How?" I reached over and squeezed her hand. "Trust me. But first, I need you to tell me everything you know. Every detail. Every lie they told you, every time you suspected something was wrong." Kara nodded, wiping fresh tears. "It's going to hurt, Dad. The truth, it's worse than you think." I was beginning to understand that. But I was done being the fool in my own house. The next morning, Mira left for her book club meeting, or what she claimed was a book club meeting. I watched from the kitchen window as she backed her Honda out of the driveway, sunglasses hiding what I assumed was a hangover. Kara had gone to her friend Emma's house, needing space to process everything. That left me alone with my thoughts and a growing need for answers. I'd been in construction long enough to know that houses hold secrets. People hide things in walls, under floorboards, in spaces they think no one will ever look. I'd found everything from love letters to cash stashes during renovation jobs. My own daughter's room felt like foreign territory as I stood in the doorway. Pink walls from her middle school years, band posters, photos of friends. Shrine to a childhood that had been poisoned by adult betrayal. I started with her desk drawers. School supplies, old phone chargers, makeup, nothing unusual. Her dresser held clothes and jewelry, still nothing. But then I noticed something odd about her closet. The back wall had a small gap where the baseboards didn't quite meet. I'd installed those baseboards myself 3 years ago, and I'd done better work than that. I knelt down and pressed against the wood. It gave slightly. Someone had removed this section and put it back imperfectly. Behind the panel, wrapped in a plastic bag, was a composition notebook. I opened it to the first page, written in Kara's careful handwriting. "If someone is reading this, it means something happened to me, or I finally got brave enough to tell the truth about Mom." My hands trembled as I turned the pages. Entries dating back 4 months, March 15th. "Devon was here when I got home from work. Mom said he was waiting for me, but I found them in the kitchen standing really close together. When they saw me, Mom stepped back fast, like she was guilty of something." March 28th. "Found a wine glass with lipstick in Devon's car, not my shade. When I asked him about it, he said his mom had borrowed the car. But his mom doesn't drink wine." April 10th. "Heard Mom on the phone late at night. She was talking in a whisper, saying things like, 'I wish I was your age again, and he doesn't understand me like you do.' When I asked who she was talking to, she said it was her sister, but Aunt Nicole lives in Seattle." The call was local. The entries became more detailed, more desperate. April 20th. "I followed Mom today when she said she was going to the grocery store. She went to the Riverside Motel. I waited in the parking lot for 2 hours. Devon's truck was there the whole time." May 3rd. Confronted Devon directly. He admitted everything. Said Mom came on to him first, that she was lonely and made him feel special. He said it wasn't serious, just physical. Like that makes it better. Like my feelings don't matter. May 15th. Devin begged me not to tell Dad. Said it would destroy the family. Mom doesn't know that I know for sure, but she's been acting weird around me. Buying me expensive gifts. Taking me shopping. Guilt presents. The final entry was dated just 3 days ago, July 20th. I can't take this anymore. Devin thinks he can have both me and Mom. Mom thinks she's getting away with it. Dad deserves to know. But how do I destroy his world? How do I tell him that his wife is sleeping with his daughter's boyfriend? That she's done this before? Because Devin let it slip last night. He said Mom told him stories about other guys. Younger guys. She said it wasn't her first time with someone my age. I closed the journal, my vision blurring with rage. Not just anger at the betrayal, but fury at how my daughter had been carrying this burden alone. How she'd been protecting me while being destroyed by the truth. My phone buzzed. A text from Mira. Book club running late. Don't wait up. I looked at the timestamp. 2:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. What book club meets at 2:30 on a Tuesday? I walked to my bedroom and opened Mira's jewelry box. Hidden under her earrings was a hotel keycard. The Riverside Motel, room 237. The same motel Kara had mentioned in her journal. I pocketed the keycard and headed to my truck. It was time to see exactly what my wife's book club looked like. I didn't go to the motel that day. Instead, I drove to Best Buy and spent $600 I couldn't afford on surveillance equipment. Tiny cameras, GPS trackers, audio recording devices, the kind of stuff private investigators use. If I was going to destroy my marriage, I was going to do it right. With evidence that would hold up in court, custody hearings, anywhere I needed it. That night, I waited until Mira was in the shower and planted the first camera in her car, hidden under the passenger seat. The GPS tracker went inside her purse, sewn into the lining where she'd never think to look. The audio recorder was trickier. I hid it in her favorite coffee mug, the one she took to work every day, the one I'd bought her for our 10th anniversary with World's Best Wife printed on the side. The irony wasn't lost on me. Over the next 3 days, I watched her patterns. The GPS showed she was telling the truth about work. She did go to the insurance office where she'd been employed for 8 years, but on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, she made detours, always to the same area of town. Always for exactly 90 minutes. The hidden camera in her car captured audio that made me sick. Her voice, I can't keep lying to Jake forever. Devin's voice, so don't lie. Just don't tell him anything. Her, what if Kara says something? Devin, Kara won't say anything. She's too scared of hurting Daddy's feelings. Their laughter after that comment nearly made me punch a hole through my workshop wall. But the recording that changed everything came on Thursday afternoon. Devin, my parents are asking questions. My mom saw us at dinner last week. Mira, what did you tell them? Devin, that you're just Kara's mom. But I don't think they bought it. Mira, maybe we should cool it for a while. Devin, like hell. You're the best thing that's happened to me. Besides, it's not like this is your first rodeo with younger guys. Mira's laugh was sultry, pleased. You're bad. Devin, tell me about the others. Mira, there was this guy when Kara was in high school, her friend's older brother. God, he was beautiful, and before that, my nephew's best friend, college age. They're just so eager to please, you know? So grateful. My hands shook as I listened to my wife describe a pattern of behavior that went back years. She wasn't just cheating. She was a hunter, targeting young men, probably using her position as an older, experienced woman to manipulate them. I thought about all the times over the years when she'd claimed to be helping Kara's friends with college applications, giving rides to boys who needed transportation, hosting study groups. How many of those interactions had been covers for something else? That night, I confronted Kara with what I'd learned. Your journal mentioned she'd done this before, I said as we sat in my truck outside a Dairy Queen, somewhere Mira couldn't overhear us. Kara nodded, stirring her milkshake without drinking it. Devin wasn't the first. In high school, my friend Sarah's brother Matt started acting weird around me. Said my mom had been texting him, asking him to help with yard work when you were out of town. He seemed scared to talk about it. Why didn't you tell me then? Because I wasn't sure, and because I didn't want to believe my own mother could do something like that. She looked up at me with eyes full of pain. Dad, what if there are others? What if she's been doing this for years and we just never knew? The thought had already occurred to me. How many young men had Mira victimized while I was working to support our family? How many lives had she damaged with her selfish need for attention and control? We're going to find out, I told my daughter. And then, we're going to make sure she never hurts anyone again. But first, I needed to catch her in the act. I needed proof so damning that she couldn't lie her way out of it. I spent that weekend preparing. More cameras, more recording devices, and something else. A plan that would force both Mira and Devin to reveal the full scope of their betrayal. On Monday morning, I kissed my wife goodbye and told her I'd be working late on a commercial job across town. A job that would keep me busy until after midnight. What I didn't tell her was that I'd hired another plumber to handle that job. Because I was going to be busy with something else entirely. I started small. On Tuesday, I sent Devin a text from a burner phone. "I know what you're doing with Mrs. Rowan. We need to talk." No response for 3 hours. Then, who is this? Me. Someone who's been watching. Meet me at Central Park, South Entrance, 8 p.m., come alone. I watched from my truck as Devin showed up, nervous and looking around like he expected an ambush. When no one approached him after 30 minutes, he left, probably convinced it was a prank. But the seed was planted. Paranoia is a useful tool. The next day, I left a note in Mira's car. "Your husband is asking questions. Be careful." I watched her find it through the hidden camera. She went pale, immediately calling someone on her phone. From the GPS tracker, I knew she drove straight to Devin's apartment instead of going to work. For Wednesday's move, I got creative. I created a fake Facebook account and sent Devin a friend request from Jessica Mills, a pretty college-age girl with photos I'd found on a stock photo website. When he accepted, Jessica sent him flirty messages asking if he was single. Devin's response was telling, "It's complicated. I'm kind of seeing an older woman, but it's not serious." I screenshotted everything and anonymously sent the conversation to Mira's work email. By Thursday, they were both paranoid wrecks. The hidden microphone in Mira's coffee mug picked up a frantic phone call. "Mira, someone knows Devin, someone's watching us." Devin, "Maybe it's your daughter. Maybe she's setting us up." Mira, "Kara wouldn't do that. She's too scared." Devin, "Then who? Your husband?" Long silence. Mira, "Jake's not smart enough for this kind of thing. He fixes pipes, Devin. He doesn't think strategically." That comment stung, but it also confirmed what I'd suspected. My wife had always underestimated me. She saw me as simple, predictable, easily fooled. It was an advantage I could use. On Friday, I escalated. I planted rubbers in Mira's purse where I knew she'd find them, but not the brand she preferred. Cheap ones from a gas station, the kind a young guy with no money would buy. Then I waited. The explosion came that evening. Through the bathroom wall where I was still working on that pipe, I heard Mira screaming at someone on the phone. "What the hell is wrong with you? Leaving those in my purse?" My husband could have seen them. Devin's voice was defensive, confused. "I didn't put anything in your purse." "I don't even know where you keep your purse." Then how did they get there? Maybe someone's messing with both of us. That night, for the first time in weeks, Mira tried to seduce me. It was pathetic, desperate. She wore the same lingerie I'd seen in photos on her phone, the ones she'd taken for Devin. I played along, but when she whispered my name during Zex, I whispered back, "Does Devin do it better?" She froze. "What did you say?" "I asked if you're okay. You seem tense lately." But I could see the fear in her eyes. The paranoia was working. On Saturday morning, while she was at the grocery store, I called Devin's parents from the burner phone, disguising my voice. Mr. and Mrs. Lee, this is Detective Morrison with the police department. We've received some disturbing reports about your son Devin and an inappropriate relationship with an older woman. Can you come down to the station this afternoon to discuss this matter?" I hung up before they could respond. Within an hour, Devin was getting frantic calls from his parents. The GPS tracker showed Mira rushing from the grocery store to Devin's apartment. Everything was falling into place. They were scared, paranoid, turning on each other. They no longer trusted their own judgment or each other's motives. But I wasn't done. The real trap was still to come. On Sunday night, I sent both of them the same message from different burner phones. "Tomorrow, 7 p.m., Romano's restaurant on 5th Street. Come alone. It's time to settle this." Neither of them responded, but the GPS tracker showed Mira driving past Romano's twice that evening, probably trying to figure out if it was a setup. It was, but not the kind they were expecting. Because tomorrow night, they weren't just going to face their fears. They were going to face me. I didn't wait for them to show up at Romano's. Instead, I decided to take a more direct approach with Devin. On Monday morning, I posted a Craigslist ad in the Models Wanted section. Photographer seeking male model, 18-25 for fitness magazine shoot. No experience necessary. Good pay. Serious inquiries only. I used a fake email address and waited. Devin responded within 3 hours. Of course he did. The kid was exactly the type. Young, arrogant, convinced of his own attractiveness. His reply included shirtless photos and a cocky message about his modeling potential. I arranged to meet him at the Pineview Motel on the outskirts of town, room 114. Told him the photographer would have equipment set up and contracts ready to sign. Devin showed up exactly on time, carrying a gym bag and wearing his best smile. I watched from my truck as he knocked on the motel room door, checking his hair in the reflection of the window. When he realized no one was answering, he tried calling the number I'd given him. A disconnected line. That's when I got out of my truck. Devin. He spun around, his face going white when he saw me walking toward him across the parking lot. Mr. Rowan? What are you doing here? Waiting for you. I could see his mind racing, trying to figure out how much I knew, what kind of trap he'd walked into. To his credit, he didn't try to run immediately. I don't understand. I'm here for a photo shoot. No, you're here because I lured you here. Just like you lured my daughter into a relationship while you were screwing her mother. The word hung in the air between us. Devin's whole body tensed, ready to bolt. Mr. Rowan, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding was me thinking you were a decent kid. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the screenshots from Mira's messages. His own words, talking about older women tricks. Devin's shoulders sagged. He knew he was caught. How long? I asked. Mr. Rowan, please, I can explain. How long have you been sleeping with my wife? He looked around the parking lot like he was planning an escape route. 3 months, maybe 4, but it didn't mean anything. It just happened. Things like that don't just happen. Someone makes a choice. Someone pursues it. Someone decides that betraying a family is worth a few hours of fun. She came on to me first, he said quickly. I swear to God, Mr. Rowan. I was just dropping Kara off after a movie, and Mrs. Rowan asked me to help her move some furniture. She started talking about how lonely she was, how you were always working, how she felt like she was invisible. The classic hunter move. Make the sufferer feel special, needed, guilty for not helping. And you believe that justified cheating with your girlfriend's mother? I know how it sounds, but how many others, Devin? What? How many other older women? How many other girlfriends' mothers? How many marriages have you helped destroy? None. This was the first time. I swear. I'm not some kind of serial cheater, but she is. That stopped him cold. Your wife told me about others, I continued. Other young men, other families she's torn apart for her own amusement. You're not special, Devin. You're just the latest sufferer in a pattern that goes back years. I could see the realization hitting him. The understanding that he hadn't been seduced by a lonely, neglected wife. He'd been hunted by a hunter who specialized in young men exactly like him. What do you want? He asked quietly. I want you to understand what you've done to my daughter. What you've taken from her. Her trust. Her first serious relationship. Her ability to believe in people. I never meant to hurt Kara. But you did. Every time you kissed her after being with her mother. Every time you lied to her face. Every time you let her believe she was crazy for suspecting something was wrong. Devin's face crumpled. For the first time, he looked like what he really was. A stupid kid who'd gotten in way over his head. I'm sorry, he whispered. Sorry doesn't fix what you broke. I pulled out a digital recorder and set it on the hood of his car. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me everything. Every detail of your relationship with my wife. Every lie you told my daughter. Every time you two met, what you did, what she said about me and Kara. Why? Because if you don't, I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Your parents, your friends, your employers, every college you might want to attend. I'll make sure that whenever someone Googles your name, they find out you're the kind of man who seduces older women and betrays teenage girlfriends. It was a bluff, but Devin didn't know that. He looked at the recorder, then at me, then at the empty parking lot around us. If I tell you everything, what happens then? Then you disappear from our lives forever. You break up with Kara, you stop contacting my wife, and you never come near my family again. Devin nodded slowly. And if I don't? I stepped closer to him. Then I stopped being civilized about this. He picked up the recorder with shaking hands. Where do you want me to start? 3 days later, I had everything I needed. Devin's confession on tape, photos and messages from Mira's phone, bank records showing the money she'd been spending on hotel rooms and gifts for her boy toy. But I wasn't ready to end this quietly. Too many people had been hurt. Too many lies had been told. This needed to be public, messy, undeniable. So I planned a dinner party. I called everyone involved and told them we needed to have a family meeting to address some concerns that had come up. I invited Mira's sister, Nicole, who'd driven down from Seattle after I'd told her there was a crisis with Mira. I invited Devin's parents, Victor and Gwen Lee, under the pretense that our kids had been having relationship problems, and we all needed to discuss it as adults. I invited Devin himself, telling him we needed to clear the air before he and Kara could move forward. And I invited Kara, who knew something was coming but didn't know exactly what. The only person I didn't tell the truth was Mira. As far as she knew, this was just an awkward dinner to help our daughter and her boyfriend work through some issues. I spent the morning cooking, lasagna, garlic bread, salad. Mira kept offering to help, but I insisted on handling everything myself. She seemed nervous, probably wondering if this was some kind of trap, but she had no choice but to play along. At exactly 6 o'clock, the guests started arriving. Nicole came first, looking concerned and confused. She hugged Mira and asked quietly what was going on. Mira gave her the same story she'd been telling me, just some teenage relationship drama that had gotten blown out of proportion. Victor and Gwen Lee arrived next, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Victor was a successful accountant, and Gwen worked in real estate. They were the kind of people who believed their son could do no wrong, and that any problems were probably someone else's fault. Devin showed up last, looking like he was walking to his own execution. He'd barely slept since our conversation at the motel, and it showed. Dark circles under his eyes, nervous twitches, constantly checking his phone. Kara had been quiet all day, staying in her room until it was time for dinner. When she came downstairs, she looked like she was about to face a firing squad. We all sat around the dining room table, the same table where we'd celebrated Kara's graduation, Mira's promotions, countless family holidays. The table I'd built with my own hands during our second year of marriage. I raised my glass of wine and looked around at everyone. Thank you all for coming. I know this is unusual, but I felt it was important for everyone to hear what I have to say at the same time, so there are no misunderstandings later. Mira shot me a warning look. She could sense something was wrong, but she couldn't figure out what. Jake, she said carefully, maybe we should discuss this privately first. No. This affects everyone here, so everyone deserves to hear it. I reached under my chair and pulled out a laptop computer. I've been doing some investigating lately. Some research into the problems our family has been having. Devin went completely pale. Kara stared at her plate. Nicole looked confused. Victor, Gwen, I'm curious. What did Devin tell you about his relationship with my daughter? Victor cleared his throat. That they care about each other very much. That he's serious about her future. Interesting. Because that's not what he told other people. I opened the laptop and turned it so everyone could see the screen. The first image was a screenshot of Devin's Facebook conversation with Jessica Mills, where he'd described his relationship with Kara as not serious. Devin, would you like to explain to your parents why you told a stranger on the internet that your girlfriend doesn't matter to you? Devin's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Gwen looked confused. Devin, what is this about? I clicked to the next image. Text messages between Devin and his friends bragging about his older woman and how she was teaching him things his kid girlfriend never could. The room went dead silent. Jake, Mira's voice was sharp with warning. I don't know what you think you're proving. I'm proving that our daughter's boyfriend has been lying to her. And I'm proving that someone else in this room has been helping him do it. I clicked again. The photo that had started it all, Mira and Devin at that party, his hands on her waist, her face turned toward his with an expression that left no doubt about what was happening between them. Nicole gasped. Mira, is that you? Gwen Lee looked like she was about to faint. Devin, who is that woman you're with? Devin couldn't speak. He just stared at the laptop screen like it was showing his death warrant. That woman, I said clearly, is my wife. Devin's girlfriend's mother, the woman he's been having an affair with for the past 4 months. The explosion was immediate and devastating. Nicole started yelling at Mira in a voice I'd never heard before. Gwen Lee screamed at Devin, demanding to know if it was true. Victor sat in stunned silence, looking like he was having a heart attack. Kara finally looked up from her plate, tears streaming down her face, and said quietly, I told you this would happen, Mom. I told you someone would find out. Mira rounded on her. You knew about this and didn't tell me someone was watching us? She knew because she walked in on you, I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. My 19-year-old daughter has been carrying the burden of your betrayal for months, trying to figure out how to protect me from the truth. I clicked to the next image, excerpts from Kara's journal, the entries where she documented her suspicions and her pain. While you were busy screwing around with a boy barely older than our daughter, she was having panic attacks about whether to destroy her father's world by telling him what kind of woman he'd married. Mira stood up abruptly, her chair falling. Backward? I don't have to listen to this. Yes, you do, because I'm not finished. I clicked again. The audio recording from Devin's confession at the motel began to play through the laptop speakers. Devin's voice, shaky but clear. It started about 4 months ago. Mrs. Rowan asked me to help her move some furniture when Mr. Rowan was at work. She started talking about how lonely she was, how ignored she felt. She said I made her feel young again, like she was attractive. Gwen Lee made a sound like a wounded animal. Oh my God, Devin, how could you? The recording continued. She told me about other guys, other young men she'd been with over the years. She said I was special, but that it wasn't her first time with someone my age. Nicole turned to stare at her sister with an expression of pure disgust. Other guys? Mira, how many times have you done this? But I wasn't done. I clicked to the final image. Bank statements showing withdrawals for hotel rooms, restaurant dinners, gifts, all paid for with money from our joint account. Money I'd earned fixing other people's problems while my wife created her own. This is what betrayal looks like in dollars and cents, I said. $3,000 in 4 months. Money that should have gone toward Kara's college fund, toward our mortgage, toward our future. Instead, it paid for motel rooms and expensive dinners for my wife and our daughter's boyfriend. Victor Lee finally found his voice. Devin, pack your things. You're moving out tonight. Dad, please. Tonight. Victor's face was purple with rage. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear from you. And if you ever contact this family again, I'll call the police myself. Gwen was crying now, looking back and forth between Devin and Mira like she couldn't process what she was seeing. How old are you? She demanded of Mira. That's not relevant. How old are you? 42, Mira whispered. 42 years old, seducing my 20-year-old son. You're a hunter. You're a sick, twisted hunter. Nicole stood up slowly, her face pale. I need to tell you something, Jake. Something I should have told you years ago, but I hoped I was wrong. The room went quiet again, everyone looking at her. When Kara was in high school, there was a boy, Matt Harrison, Sarah Harrison's older brother. He came to me after something happened. He said Mira had been texting him, asking him to come help with yard work when you were out of town. He said she'd tried to seduce him, but he was scared and ran away. My hands clenched into fists. Why didn't you tell me? Because I confronted Mira about it, and she convinced me the boy was lying. She said he was troubled, looking for attention. She made me believe it was just a mixed-up kid making up stories. Nicole turned to glare at her sister. But there was another one, wasn't there? Before Matt, that friend of our nephew Tommy. What was his name? Brandon? Mira's face went completely white. Brandon Mills, Nicole continued. 21 years old, going through a rough patch after his father died. You swooped in like a vulture, didn't you? Offering comfort, playing the understanding older woman. His mother told me he had a nervous breakdown after whatever happened between you two. She never knew why. That's enough, Mira said, but her voice had no strength behind it. No, it's not enough, because there were probably others, other young men whose lives you've damaged with your sick need for control and attention. I looked around the table at the wreckage of what had been my family dinner. Devin was openly sobbing now, his parents looking at him like he was a stranger. Kara sat frozen, watching her world collapse in real time. And Mira looked like a trapped animal, her eyes darting between the faces, staring at her with disgust and contempt. "I have one more thing to show you," I said quietly. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. From it, I extracted divorce papers, already filled out, already signed by me, needing only her signature to make it official. "These papers give me full custody of Kara, based on your documented pattern of carnivory behavior toward young men. They also require you to undergo psychological evaluation and counseling before you're allowed any unsupervised contact with minors." I slid the papers across the table to her. "You can sign them now, in front of witnesses, and leave this house tonight with some small amount of dignity intact. Or you can fight me in court, where all of this evidence will become public record." Mira stared at the papers like they were covered in poison. "Jake, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can fix this." "There's nothing to fix." "This isn't a marriage problem or a communication issue. This is a character problem. You're a hunter who targets young men, and I won't have that around my daughter." "Our daughter," she corrected desperately. "No, my daughter. You lost the right to call her that when you decided to sleep with her boyfriend." I stood up and walked to a cabinet in the corner of the room. From it, I pulled out a thumb drive. "Kara, this contains copies of everything. The photos, the messages, the recordings, the bank statements. If your mother ever tries to contact you or manipulate you again, if she ever tries to rewrite history or make you doubt what really happened, you have proof." Kara took the thumb drive with shaking hands. Nicole stood up abruptly. "Kara, pack a bag. You're coming home with me to Seattle until this gets sorted out." "That's not necessary," Mira started. "Yes, it is," Nicole snapped. "Because I don't trust you around any young person anymore." "Including your own daughter." Devin's parents were already heading for the door, Victor pulling his son along like he was contaminated. "We'll pay for any therapy Kara needs," Gwen called back over her shoulder. "And we're truly sorry for what our son did to your family." The door slammed behind them. I looked at Mira, still sitting at the table with the divorce papers in front of her. "You have 1 hour to pack whatever you can fit in your car. After that, I'm changing the locks." "Jake, this is my house too." "No, this house is in my name only. The deed, the mortgage, everything. You never bothered to contribute anything but your insurance job salary, which barely covered your own expenses." It was true. I'd bought the house with money saved from my plumbing business before we got married. I'd paid for every improvement, every repair, every upgrade with my own labor and earnings. Mira finally seemed to understand that she had no cards left to play. She picked up a pen with trembling hands and signed the divorce papers. As she stood to leave, she looked at Kara one last time. "Baby, I hope someday you'll understand." "Understand what?" Kara's voice was cold, older than her 19 years. "That you destroyed our family for a few hours of excitement? That you traumatized me for months because you couldn't keep your hands off my boyfriend? That you've probably done this to other families and never cared about the damage you caused?" Kara stood up, tears streaming down her face, but her voice steady. "I hope I never understand that, Mom. Because understanding that would mean becoming someone like you." Mira left without another word. The house felt empty without Mira's presence, but not in a sad way. More like the feeling you get when a fever finally breaks, exhausted but clean. Nicole had taken Kara back to her hotel for the night, planning to drive to Seattle in the morning. I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the signed divorce papers and trying to process what my life would look like moving forward. My phone rang around midnight. Detective Ray Morrison, a real detective, not the fake one I'd pretended to be when calling Devin's parents. "Jake, this is Ray Morrison, Police Department. I hate to bother you this late, but I got a call from a Victor Lee about some kind of situation involving your family." My stomach dropped. Had Devin's father decided to press charges against me for the motel confrontation? What kind of situation? He said something about his son being involved with your wife, and that there might be other sufferers. He wants to file a complaint, but he's not sure what kind of complaint to file. I rubbed my forehead. "It's complicated, Ray. Most family situations are. Look, I know you're going through something, but if there's a pattern of behavior that might constitute criminal activity, we need to look into it. Criminal activity? An adult woman seducing multiple young men, potentially using booze or other means to impair their judgment, potentially engaging in unlawful relationship with a minor if any of them were under 18. Jake, this could be serious. I hadn't thought about the legal implications. I'd been so focused on protecting my family and getting revenge that I hadn't considered whether Mira had actually broken any laws. What do you need from me? Come in tomorrow morning. Bring any evidence you have. And Jake, if there really are other sufferers, they deserve justice too. After I hung up, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Nicole had said about Matt Harrison and Brandon Mills, about Mira's casual admission to Devin that she'd done this before. How many young men had she targeted over the years? How many families had been damaged by her carnivory behavior? The next morning, I drove to the police station with a box full of evidence. Photos, recordings, bank statements, Kara's journal entries. Detective Morrison looked through everything with growing concern. "This is definitely a pattern," he said after reviewing the materials, "and some of these text messages could constitute maltreatment or stalking. The financial misuse is clear. She was using your joint accounts to fund these affairs without your knowledge or consent. What about the other sufferers Nicole mentioned? We'll need to track them down and see if they're willing to talk." But Jake, I have to ask, how did you get some of this evidence? These recordings, the photos from her phone? I'd been expecting that question. I installed surveillance equipment in my own house and car. Everything was recorded on my property or with my equipment. It was legally gray area, but Morrison nodded. Understandable, given the circumstances. What about the confession from the Lee boy? He gave that voluntarily. I can provide you with the full recording. Morrison made some notes. I'll need to talk to your daughter and to Nicole about what she knows regarding previous sufferers. This investigation could take months. What happens to Mira in the meantime? If we find evidence of criminal behavior, we'll file charges. If any of the sufferers were minors at the time of the incidents, she could be looking at serious felony charges. I left the police station feeling oddly empty. I'd gotten my revenge, protected my daughter, and exposed Mira's pattern of misuse. But victory felt hollow when you realized how many people had been hurt along the way. That afternoon, Nicole called from Seattle. "Jake, I've been making some phone calls about Mira's past." "What did you find?" "I contacted Brandon Mills's mother. She's willing to talk to the police, and I found Matt Harrison. He's in college now, but he remembers what happened. He said he's been afraid to tell anyone because he thought no one would believe him. Jesus, there's more." I called our cousin in Denver, asked her if she remembered anything unusual about Mira's behavior when we visited there 5 years ago. She said there was a young man who worked at their country club, maybe 22 or 23. He quit suddenly after Mira's visit, and when she asked him why, he said he didn't feel comfortable around certain members anymore. The scope of Mira's carnivory behavior was becoming clear. It wasn't just opportunistic cheating, it was a deliberate pattern of seeking out and targeting vulnerable young men. How many, Nicole? How many lives has she damaged? I don't know. But I think we're going to find out. That evening, I got a call from Victor Lee. "Mr. Rowan, I wanted to apologize again for my son's behavior, and I wanted you to know we've convinced him to speak with the police. He's going to tell them everything he knows about your wife's activities." "How is he doing?" "Not good. He's finally realizing that he wasn't seduced by a lonely housewife. He was targeted by a hunter. The therapist we found says this kind of manipulation can cause long-term psychological damage." Another sufferer. Another life altered by Mira's selfish need for control and excitement. Mr. Lee, I hope you know that I don't blame Devin entirely for what happened. He's young and she's had years of practice at this. You're more forgiving than I would be in your position. After I hung up, I sat in my empty house and tried to process everything that had happened. In less than a week, I'd gone from being a betrayed husband to being part of a criminal investigation into my wife's carnivory behavior. The phone rang again. This time it was Kara calling from Seattle. "Dad, Aunt Nicole told me about the police investigation, about the other sufferers. How are you handling that?" "I don't know. Part of me feels guilty. Like, maybe if I'd spoken up sooner, I could have prevented this from happening to Devin and whoever comes next. Kara, this is not your fault. You were a sufferer, too, manipulated and silenced by someone who should have been protecting you. I know. But it still hurts. We talked for another hour, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt like my daughter and I might be able to rebuild our relationship, maybe even make it stronger than it had been before. But first, we had to see justice done, and I was beginning to understand that my personal revenge was just the beginning of a much larger reckoning. 2 weeks later, Detective Morrison called with an update. We've identified 4 additional sufferers spanning the last 8 years, all young men between ages 19 and 23, all approached by your wife in similar circumstances. She positioned herself as a helpful older woman, then gradually escalated to sexual contact. Are they pressing charges? 3 of them are. The 4th moved out of state and doesn't want to get involved, but he confirmed the pattern of behavior. What are the charges? Sexual battery, stalking, financial fraud, and contributing to the delinquency of minors. 2 of the sufferers were 19 at the time, which is legal but still problematic given the power dynamic. But one sufferer, the Harrison boy, was 17 when the initial contact occurred, even though the sexual contact didn't happen until after he turned 18. I felt sick. 17? She'd been grooming him for months, sending inappropriate messages, buying him gifts, isolating him from his family, classic hunter behavior. Where is Mira now? That's the problem. She's disappeared. The address she gave when she left your house was fake. Her bank accounts have been emptied. Her cell phone is disconnected. My blood ran cold. You mean she's running? We think so. We've issued a warrant for her arrest, but she had a 2-week head start. She could be anywhere by now. I hung up feeling frustrated and angry. After everything I'd done to expose her, after all the evidence I'd gathered, Mira had managed to escape justice by simply disappearing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about her out there somewhere, possibly targeting new sufferers, ruining new families. The thought that my revenge had been incomplete gnawed at me. Around 3 a.m., I got a text from an unknown number. You destroyed my life for nothing. I hope you're happy. Mira. She'd found a way to contact me despite the restraining order. I screenshotted the message and forwarded it to Detective Morrison, then blocked the number. But 10 minutes later, another text came from a different number. Kara will never forgive you for what you did to our family. Then another, you're going to regret this. And another, I know where you live. I called Morrison immediately, even though it was the middle of the night. She's threatening me, I said when he answered. Multiple texts from different numbers. Forward them all to me. And Jake, be careful. We've learned more about her background since she ran. She has a history of escalating when she feels cornered. What kind of history? Restraining orders from previous relationships, a pattern of maltreatment and stalking when things don't go her way. She's not just a hunter, she's potentially dangerous. I spent the next 3 days looking over my shoulder, checking locks, varying my routines. The texts kept coming, sometimes threatening, sometimes pleading, sometimes trying to manipulate me with false claims about Kara wanting to reconcile. On Friday evening, I was working late in my shop behind the house when I heard a car door slam in my driveway. I looked out the window and saw a figure walking toward my front door. It was Mira. She looked terrible. Unwashed hair, rumpled clothes, the haggard appearance of someone who'd been living rough. But there was something else in her posture, something desperate and dangerous. I grabbed my phone and called 911, then watched through the window as she began pounding on my front door. "Jake!" she screamed. "I know you're in there! We need to talk!" The pounding got louder, more frantic. Then I heard glass breaking. She'd smashed one of the windows beside the door. I grabbed a wrench from my toolbox and moved toward the house. Through the shop window, I could see her climbing through the broken window, cutting herself on the glass, but not caring. The 911 operator was asking questions, but I could barely focus on answering them. Mira was inside my house now, screaming my name, throwing things. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, checking the bedrooms. Then she was back downstairs, heading toward the kitchen, toward the back door that led to my shop. The door burst open, and she stood there, wild-eyed and bleeding from cuts on her arms. "You ruined everything," she said, her voice eerily calm despite her appearance. 22 years of marriage, and you threw it all away over one little mistake. One little mistake? I kept the wrench ready, staying between her and the exit. Mira, you're a hunter. You've been targeting young men for years. They wanted it, she snapped. All of them. They came to me, Jake. They needed what I could give them. They were kids, teenagers. You manipulated them. I gave them confidence. I taught them things their little girlfriends never could. I made them feel special. The delusion in her voice was chilling. She genuinely believed she'd been helping these young men rather than victimizing them. What about Kara? What about our daughter's feelings? Kara will understand when she's older. When she realizes that marriage isn't some fairy tale, that people have needs. Kara will never forgive you. She's in therapy because of what you did. She can't trust anyone because her own mother betrayed her. Something shifted in Mira's expression. The calm facade cracked, revealing raw fury underneath. "This is all your fault," she hissed. "If you'd been a better husband, if you'd paid attention to me, if you'd made me feel desired instead of taking me for granted, I worked 60-hour weeks to provide for this family. I built this house with my own hands. I gave you everything I had. You gave me everything except what I needed: passion, excitement, the feeling of being truly wanted. So you decided to find that with our daughter's boyfriend?" She lunged at me then, fingernails going for my face. I caught her wrists and pushed her back, but she was stronger than I'd expected, fueled by desperation and rage. We struggled for a moment before I managed to pin her against the workbench. She was breathing hard, staring at me with pure hatred. "You think you've won," she panted. "You think destroying my life makes you the hero of this story? I think protecting my daughter makes me her father. Kara's going to find out what kind of man you really are. Cold, calculating, cruel. She's going to realize that you didn't do this to protect her. You did it for revenge. Maybe. But she'll also realize that I would do anything to keep her safe, even from her own mother." Sirens were getting closer. Mira heard them too, and her expression shifted to panic. "Jake, please. We can still fix this. We can go away somewhere. Start over." "There's no fixing this, Mira. There's no going back." "Then I'll make sure you lose everything too," she whispered. "If I can't have my life back, I'll destroy yours." The police burst through the shop door at that moment, weapons drawn. I released Mira's wrists and stepped back, hands visible. "She broke into my house," I told them quickly. "She's been sending threatening messages." They handcuffed Mira as she screamed threats and accusations, claiming I'd attacked her, that I'd manipulated the evidence, that I was the real hunter. Detective Morrison arrived as they were loading her into the patrol car. "It's over, Jake," he said quietly. "She'll be held without bail pending trial." "The evidence is overwhelming. She's not getting out of this." I watched the patrol car disappear down my street, taking Mira out of my life forever, but I knew it wasn't really over. The damage she'd caused would ripple through dozens of lives for years to come. The young men she'd victimized would need therapy and time to heal. Kara would need to rebuild her ability to trust. And I would need to figure out how to live with the knowledge that the woman I'd loved and trusted for over 2 decades had been a hunter all along. 6 months later, I stood in a courtroom and watched a judge sentence Mira to 8 years in prison. She'd pled guilty to multiple counts of sexual battery, stalking, financial fraud, and violation of restraining orders. The prosecutors had originally sought 12 years, but her lawyer negotiated the plea deal in exchange for her cooperation in identifying additional sufferers. There were 11 total sufferers. 11 young men whose lives had been damaged by my wife's carnivory behavior over the course of nearly a decade. Kara came back from Seattle for the sentencing. She sat beside me in the gallery, her hand in mine, as the judge read through the charges and the impact statements from the sufferers. Matt Harrison, now 22 and in college, spoke about the panic attacks and trust issues that had plagued him since his encounter with Mira when he was 17. Brandon Mills, the young man Nicole had mentioned, talked about the depression and relationship problems that followed his experience with her. Devin didn't testify, but his parents submitted a written statement describing the therapy he'd needed and the way the experience had affected his ability to form healthy relationships. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it simple. "Your Honor, I was married to the defendant for 22 years. I thought I knew her. I thought she was a good person, a good mother, someone I could trust with my life and my daughter's well-being. I was wrong about all of that. The defendant is a hunter who targets vulnerable young men. She uses her position as an adult, as a mother figure, to manipulate and misuse people who trust her. She's damaged dozens of lives, including her own daughters, and she's shown no genuine remorse for any of it. I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking for justice for all the people she's hurt, and protection for all the people she might hurt in the future. Mira sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, staring straight ahead. She didn't look at me, didn't look at Kara, didn't acknowledge the pain described in the sufferer impact statements. When the judge asked if she had anything to say before sentencing, she stood and spoke in a flat, emotionless voice. I accept responsibility for my actions, and I'm sorry for any damage I may have caused. It was the most hollow apology I'd ever heard. Even then, even facing 8 years in prison, she couldn't bring herself to admit the full scope of what she'd done. After the sentencing, Kara and I walked out of the courthouse together. The media was waiting. The case had attracted attention because of the pattern of misuse and the number of sufferers. "How do you feel about the sentence?" a reporter asked. I looked into the camera and said, "I feel like justice was served. But no sentence can undo the damage that was done to the sufferers or give back the innocence that was stolen from them." That evening, Kara and I had dinner at a small restaurant near my house. She was planning to stay for a few more days before returning to Seattle, where she'd enrolled in college and was living with Nicole. "Are you okay with the sentence?" I asked her. "I think so. 8 years feels like a long time, but when I think about all the people she hurt," Kara shook her head. "I just keep wondering how I lived with her for 19 years and never really knew who she was. People can hide their true nature for a long time, especially when they're practiced at manipulation. Do you think she'll try to contact me when she gets out? Not if I have anything to say about it. And by then, you'll be an adult with your own life. You'll have the strength to handle whatever she tries." Kara nodded, but I could see the fear in her eyes. The knowledge that her mother would eventually be released, that this chapter of our lives had an expiration date. "Dad, I want you to know that I don't blame you for any of this. What you did, exposing her, gathering the evidence, making sure she faced justice, it was the right thing. I'm not sure about that. I think part of it was revenge. I wanted to hurt her the way she'd hurt us." "Maybe, but you also protected me, and you protected other potential sufferers. That matters more than your motivations." We drove home in comfortable silence. When we got to the house, Kara went upstairs to pack for her flight back to Seattle. I sat in my kitchen looking around at the space I'd built with my own hands. Felt different now, cleaner, like a house where secrets couldn't survive. My phone buzzed with a text from Nicole. "How did it go today?" I typed back, 8 years. It's over." "How's Kara handling it?" "Better than I expected. She's stronger than I gave her credit for." "She gets that from you." I smiled at that. Maybe Kara would be okay. Maybe we both would. Over the next year, I slowly rebuilt my life. I expanded my plumbing business, taking on bigger commercial jobs. I started dating again, carefully, taking things slow, learning to trust my judgment about people. Kara visited every few months, and we talked on the phone regularly. She was thriving in college, studying psychology with the goal of becoming a counselor for misuse sufferers. She'd found a way to turn her trauma into purpose. Devin had moved to another state for college. His parents sent me a Christmas card with a note saying he was doing better, that therapy had helped him understand that he'd been victimized rather than seduced. Some of the other sufferers reached out to me over the months following the trial. They wanted to thank me for having the courage to expose Mira's pattern of misuse. Several had started their own therapy and were working to rebuild their lives. Detective Morrison told me that Mira was having a difficult time in prison. Inmates didn't look kindly on child hunters, even when the sufferers were technically adults. She'd been moved to protective custody after being attacked by other prisoners. I felt no satisfaction in that news. I'd gotten my revenge, but it hadn't brought me the closure I'd expected. The real healing had come from rebuilding my relationship with Kara and helping other sufferers find justice. 2 years after the trial, I got a letter from Mira in prison. The return address made my stomach turn, but I read it anyway. "Jake, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to tell you that I understand now what I did wrong. The therapy here has helped me see that I was using those young men to fill a void in my own life, and that I hurt everyone in the process. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm genuinely sorry for what I put you and Kara through. You were a good husband, and I was a terrible wife. I hope you found happiness without me. Mira, I read the letter twice, then threw it in the trash. Some people might have seen it as a genuine apology, a sign that Mira was finally taking responsibility for her actions. But I'd lived with her lies for too long to believe that change was possible. The letter was probably just another manipulation, another attempt to make herself look sympathetic, in case it helped with parole hearings down the road. I never responded. I never wanted to hear from her again. 3 years after the trial, I married a woman named Sarah who worked as a nurse at the local hospital. She knew my whole story, understood my baggage, and loved me anyway. Cara was my best woman at the small ceremony. Mira would be eligible for parole in 2 more years. I'd already spoken with Cara and the other sufferers about appearing at the hearing to oppose her release. We'd present evidence that she remained a danger to young men and that her release would put potential sufferers at risk. I was confident she'd serve her full sentence. The parole board would see through any claims of rehabilitation. But even if she was released early, it wouldn't matter. I'd won the only battle that counted. I'd protected my daughter and ensured that other young men wouldn't suffer the same fate as her previous sufferers. Mira had lost everything. Her family, her freedom, her reputation, her future. She'd spend the rest of her life as a registered sex offender, unable to live near schools or youth programs, constantly monitored by law enforcement. She'd made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences. I'd made my choices too. I'd chosen justice over revenge, protection over retaliation, truth over comfortable lies. And unlike my ex-wife, I could live with the consequences of my decisions. Standing in my backyard on a Saturday morning, watching Sarah plant flowers in the garden I'd built for Mira years ago, I realized that some stories don't have redemption arcs. Some people don't change, don't grow, don't learn from their mistakes. Mira was one of those people. She'd chosen her path and walked it willingly, destroying lives along the way. But I'd chosen a different path. I'd chosen to be the kind of man my daughter could be proud of, the kind of man who stood up for sufferers and fought for justice. In the end, that was the only redemption that mattered. The end,